Hey folks, today I'll cover a recent new addition to my collection that I teased you weeks ago through this mystery package that arrived from Hollywood. ReVOLUTION. Wow, this cover art is freaking cool. This copy is even still sealed. I think I'll never open it and get the game somewhere else. I came into contact with this game through the video review from Activision, I think that's correct. This cool guy who also cover old and forgotten games. Anyway, ReVOLUTION was published by Activision and developed by Fun Labs Romania, a studio that has been acquired by Maximum Entertainment in 2023 and now operates as Modus Studios Bucharest. Originally, I thought that Fun Labs was one of those companies that dissolved just after a few or even their very first game, but instead it has a long list of credited titles throughout over 20 years of activity, mainly a ton of Cabela's games. ReVOLUTION is a game that left me quite perplexed. It has good potential in its concept and setting, but then fails because of some stupid design choices and lack of depth. But let's go in order. The environment has been ravaged. The planet is wounded and wasting away. In order for humanity to continue, our bodies have been modified to enhance strengths and minimize weaknesses. Have we gone too far? And that's the premise. Okay, perhaps not the most original, but still a solid base. The game is set in this dystopic future, precisely in a sort of unnamed city-state, led by the Corporation. Not the most banal name ever witnessed, but a good contender alongside the Crime Syndicate. And even Mafia International. It's a tough challenge. Anyway, making ReVOLUTION run on Windows 10 is very easy, and you will just have to install the patch 1.1 to ensure an experience without game-breaking bugs. PC Gaming Wiki also provides solutions for the game settings not saving and increasing resolution and field of view. In fact, I played it in 16:9 aspect ratio and didn't notice any excessive stretching. Damn, the premise above was quite accurate. Just look, the whole land, or better to say the whole planet, looks like shite. There's a brownish fog that covers everything, and the enormous city where the game takes place seems to have come out of the most classic of cyberpunk dystopias. I really like this menu, and also the moving background. The first impression is very positive, and we can see how the developers are already building everything for the experience to come. If you ever want to play this game, be careful not to choose the hard difficulty. I tried it on my very first playthrough, and had to give up because it becomes totally unbalanced and impossible to beat. The only way to change it is to start over, and maybe use cheats to skip to the level where you left off. The game opens immediately after the previous intro ends, with our protagonist getting out of the taxi. Aside from admiring the view and wondering why the hell I can see the lights through the car's models, the only thing to do is approach the entrance of the building, where a cutscene will trigger. This is our protagonist, Jack Plummer, who came to the Corporation HQ to answer the job posting for the maintenance department. Why the heck I can see the lights even through Jack? What a strange bug. Once inside, you will discover that there's actually no one to interview with. I thought I was doing something wrong and didn't know how to interact with this guy in the entrance hall. Instead, just continue straight here and admire the propaganda imagery. Huge statues and high-sounding slogans. I like this atmosphere. We'll have to go through this door and... oops, I'm dead. Anyway, a computer will scan Jack, showing information about his age and past as a military officer, and magically he will be hired. How convenient. Once finished, we'll have to pick up the EDR from a desk, otherwise we won't be able to continue. The EDR is a sort of PDA, where we can read the mission briefings and various detailed informations. Continuing, we'll reach the bar, where Jack meets his ex, Johanna, who now works in the upper level of the corporation.
Yes, I work in the higher
Johanna, let's say she will play a crucial role in future events, but for now we'll have to go to our apartment and wear a sort of HV suit reminiscent of Half-Life. We're almost ready to start the real game, but first we'll have to follow a tutorial, in which we'll learn how to move through dangers and overcome obstacles, by jumping, crouching, and climbing even fences like in Red Faction. It's pretty simple, and the deadly hazards are conveniently covered when we fall into them, because the corporation loves its workers, except before hiring them. That passage must be an intelligence test. So, after finishing the tutorial, we'll be ready to work as a proper janitor. No joking. In the first part of the game, we'll be called to carry out janitor tasks. By taking this elevator, we'll go down to the central hub. This is where we'll return after each mission, and receive instructions on the next assignment on our EDR, by taking the stairs and interacting with the switch. As you can see, there's no human interaction at all. Working in the corporation is very alienating, because no one wants to talk to anyone. Everyone's doing their own thing.
Not now. I'm quite busy for the moment.
Except these two guys here.
It won't work. You've got to fix it.
Well, as I was saying, we'll be called upon to do janitor work, and the first mission will take us to the sewers. A proper start. We'll simply have to go around the various connected areas and kill animals like mutant cockroaches and whatever these monstrous muffs are. Seriously, what the fuck are these shits? In truth, it's not a walk in the park, because there are dangers such as high-pressure steam leaks that can kill us instantly. In the meantime, we'll also have to interact with valves and switches to solve some environmental puzzles and finally escape this crappy place. I have to say that the movement in this game is not bad. Jack actually moves decently fast, and the gunplay is acceptable most of the time. I may never use the range and other melee weapons seriously, but the shotgun will be one of the top choices throughout the whole game. The flamethrower, on the other hand, just sucks. It takes too much time to kill anything. Perhaps because of his military background, Jack is armed for combat from the start, and in this game there's a lot to kill since the beginning, because the next missions will always include, let's call it, pest control. Just saying, the next assignment involves killing pterodactyls that are damaging the ventilation system. Another time we'll have to kill escaped mutant chameleons, using the thermal vision of the sniper rifle to spot them easily. And later we'll have to destroy heavily armed androids that have gone out of control. But my favorite part is when I had to kill hybrid panthers using an electrical whip. It's very peculiar, but not that effective. I prefer the shotgun. Yes. ReVOLUTION may seem like a rather unique FPS, and it certainly is for the first quarter of the whole campaign, but it soon shows some oddities. For example, the game decides what weapons you can carry in each level. The player cannot pick up anything even from human enemies, and that's bullshit, especially in the next stages. The HUD also doesn't show the remaining ammunitions, but instead it displays the remaining magazines. Why? It's not difficult to figure out how much we have left, but this remains rather strange, because we're not talking about a tactical/realistic shooter.
Kind of busy, huh? Working from day to night, no time to relax.
Anyway, between some missions, there will be cutscenes where Jack will have conversations with Joanna, who will try to convince him that the corporation is not what it seems, and later even convince him to join a resistance movement.
That had deviated from its basic purpose.
Later, an initially skeptical Jack will finally become convinced that the corporation is actually evil. Color me surprised. After seeing with his own eyes some very shady experiments conducted in the shadows that perhaps should be stopped. Well, the big plot twist is that Jack will be chosen and taken against his will to become a guinea pig for the breed program, and indeed will be transformed into the first of a series of mutant super soldiers and sent to fight terrorist rebels. The game becomes a more standard FPS, where we'll mostly fight human enemies. This change is quite reminiscent of the later Vivisector, with its humanimals, but much less fun. One new feature is that health and armor are slowly recovered, and, most importantly, when Jack jumps, he emits an annoying growl. Was it necessary? Anyway, I haven't told you yet about this particular issue. See, on the back cover it says this. Interactive sound and music adjust automatically to the game's atmosphere, and uses Creative Labs EAX 3.0 technology. I don't know what the hell I did wrong, but not only is there no dynamic music, but there's no music at all. I can only count perhaps 4 tracks from memory, and while browsing the game files, I found this folder with these tracks, of which I never heard these two in particular during my 2 playthroughs. But from the title, I assume they're multiplayer related. Yes, I played the whole game twice. Because reasons. Aside from the missing music, I have to say that ReVOLUTION has pretty good ambient sound. There's never any silence, but there's always the sound of machinery or other noises in the background. I would say that at times it reminded me of Doom 3, which was a true masterpiece of sound design with almost no music. Despite the change in pace and style, ReVOLUTION still shows one major problem. It's neither fun nor memorable, even though it had great potential. This is due to a number of issues, ranging from general combat and gunplay to level design. Yes, the most important things in a shooter. The movement is, yes, decent, well, except for when you have to pass through tight spaces or ducts. Jack seems to struggle as if it were a collision problem, and the combat is frustrating and not exciting at all, because human enemies are both hyperactive and incredibly stupid. There are times where they spot and hit you from a mile, and others where they just stand still or run away without attacking, and when they attack, they hurt a lot, and also move around like the assholes from Red Faction. Remember those? Fortunately, ReVOLUTION's enemies are less bad. Luckily, there are a lot of armor bonuses scattered around, but health cannot be replenished, and as a mutant, it just regenerates itself very slowly. See, health is depleted only after the armor reaches 0, otherwise it's harmed only by falling damage and drowning. Besides, every time we enter a new level, both health and armor are fully recovered. The initial struggle against the rebels is even worsened by the limited arsenal. I found irritating that my enemies were better armed than me, and the game provides all the weapons only after the first half, because of that strange choice of not allowing you to collect weapons from killed enemies. I still wonder why. So, the game features a total of 19 weapons divided into categories. Melee weapons include the classic range and crowbar, but also that stylish electrical whip and the skull saw to which we can attach a cutting disc. The problem with melee combat is that it should actually be avoided. unless we use the shotgun. That's a powerhouse. What I appreciate most of this arsenal are the weapons animations. I don't know why the grenade launcher has this strange moving eye on its side, but looks very cool. And I also love the reloading animation of the rocket launcher. Besides, almost all weapons have optional devices, which on paper should make combat more varied. For example, the shotgun has an attachable flashlight, which is actually useless, as much as the laser sight of the pistol and the silencer of the puncturing gun, which is the game's version of the machine gun. Okay, perhaps many upgrades are not very useful, and some weapons feels quite underwhelming, like the pistol, the pulse gun, the goddamn flamethrower, the sort of spider mines, and then there's the crossbow. I think it sucks at combat, but it has a hook that allows you to do these cool maneuvers. A weapon I find to be a good compromise is the carbon nails rifle, a sort of lightweight version of the rocket launcher, but it's a shame it's better to rely on splash damage than directly hitting enemies. I have the impression that enemies' nails are much faster than mine. They always get me. Anyway, remember when poor Jack became a brainwashed mutant super soldier against his will? Let's say that somehow he'll come back to his senses, and in the third part of the game, he turns against the corporation after meeting the rebel leaders, Morpheus' cousin and his girlfriend, who strangely had no voice during this scene in the first playthrough, but is voiced in the second. Strange bugs indeed. Also, against all logic, it doesn't matter that Jack decimated the resistance, because now he's regained his humanity and can help them. This shit makes no sense. From there, the final act of the game begins, during which we mostly revisit previously visited sectors of the corporation, and the enemies are now the corporation soldiers accompanied by an army of breeds that are very tough. The overall level design of the game is not anything special and is rather linear. Sometimes I even got lost because everything looked the same, and it was hard to get my bearings. An example is the level Urban Terror, where I had to figure out how to get to a goddamn library while going back and forth through this apartment building to the point of giving me a freaking headache. But then I realized I had to jump out of a window to climb a grate. I felt dumb. Also, there are no particular puzzles, other than pressing buttons to open doors, which makes the overall exploration a bit shallow. However, there are two levels I want to mention. In Fly Over the City, we have to find the place where the Resistance has fled within 5 minutes on board of a flying car, and the EDR suggests looking for Jankpolis. I have no idea where the fuck that place may be, and there are no signs to guide me. But, for your information, it's this place. This is the only section of the game where you're in a vehicle, and, let's appreciate the effort to add a little variety. Continuing, in Nowhere to Run, we're confined in this elevator full of crates that we can move to create cover before being spotted by enemies. It's a matter of surviving until the elevator reaches its destination. It lasts just a few minutes, but damn, it was brutal. Anyway, I won't spoil the game's ending, but I'll just say that it's rather rushed and very anticlimactic, with a final scene that made me say, "What? Is that all? After all that mess? What a piece of crap." And so ends Revolution, a first-person shooter with potential that could have been so much more, but it seems they had to cut a lot of stuff due to budget and deadline constraints. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to find any interviews or postmortems about its development, hence I can only speculate. In summary, Revolution starts well, but continues unenthusiastically and ends even worse. One of the few things that struck me was the proprietary engine, which I initially mistook for id Tech 3. Seriously, very similar vibes. Graphically, Revolution wasn't bad, thanks in part to an art direction that carefully recreated a dark, ruined world, where a declining humanity lives dependent on implants and guided by propaganda. And I think it's a shame that we don't know anything more about this world, and what lies beyond the megalopolis where the story takes place. It's also a pity that it lacks a powerful industrial soundtrack that would have suited the game very well, along with more exciting combat and varied level design. In the end, Revolution is a flawed relic of the past that is perhaps interesting to revisit, but it's not something I would recommend to anyone other than seekers of obscure games like me. That said, as always, a warm thanks to all viewers, and see you in the next entry.